Despite being the silent mastermind behind some of comedy's most memorable moments, Eugene Levy has kept something secret about his longtime buddy and co-star, John Candy, until now. The adored actor and comedy genius now reveals a hitherto undiscovered side of John Candy at the age of 77, and his admission is both heartwarming and startling. Why would a guy with a reputation for deadpan humor break down in front of the camera? You may be devastated to learn the truth about their friendship. Early life. Growing up in downtown Hamilton, Ontario, Eugene Levy was part of a humble Jewish household. His father, Joseph, was a supervisor at an auto company, and his mother, Rebecca, was a stay-at-home parent. Fred and Barbara were his siblings. With his father's origins in Spain and Bulgaria and his mother from Glasgow, he came from a wealthy family. Although life wasn't always simple, Eugene's experiences helped to mold him into the person he is today. A leader, not a comedian. Eugene was well known at Westdale Secondary School for his leadership as student council president, not for his comedic abilities. Later, while serving as vice president of the McMaster Film Board, a student film organization at McMaster University, he fell in love with movies. Then he met director Ivan Reitman, and his entertainment career began. His big break. When Eugene Levy was cast in the Godspell production in Toronto in 1972, it was his big break. Originally intended to be a short-lived program, it became a significant smash and helped launch the careers of actors like Andrea Martin, Gilda Radner, Victor Garber, Martin Short, and Eugene. There was a lot of excitement, optimism, and uncertainty then. Eugene has a unique skill that would only develop with time. An impressionist. Following Godspell, Eugene relocated to Toronto's second city, where his distinct sense of comedy thrived. He loved oddball, eccentric personalities, sometimes with a scholarly edge. Earl Kurd, a bumbling newscaster who showed his ability to create lovable, uncomfortable personalities, was his fans' favorite. Eugene Levy's funny impersonations of famous people like Alex Trebek, Sean Connery, and Perry Como demonstrated his range as a comedian. However, his unique characters like Sid Dithers and Bobby Bittman revealed his artistic side. Not drawn to the limelight. Eugene stayed grounded despite his rising stardom. He focused on his art and was not interested in pursuing the spotlight. He became well known in movies throughout the 1980s and 1990s, starring in beloved productions like Splash and National Lampoon's Vacation. Eugene was renowned for making even the most minor roles memorable, even though he didn't usually play the lead. His collaboration. Eugene was able to present his skills differently because of his work with Christopher Guest on mockumentaries such as A Mighty Wind and Best in Show. He received much recognition for his performance in A Mighty Wind as the delicate, emotionally unstable folk musician Mitch Cohen. He distinguished himself from other comedy performers by giving his characters heart, sincerity, and humor. Working with the family. When Eugene and his son, Dan Levy, founded Schitt's Creek in the latter years of his career took an unexpected turn. Eugene brought warmth, comedy, and nuance to his portrayal as Johnny Rose, the patriarch of the Rose family. The performance was a moving examination of family, love, and atonement rather than just a comedy. It became much more poignant when he shared the screen with his kids, Dan and Sarah. Eugene's life has always revolved around his family. Now they are working together to create something unique. The Humble Joe. Eugene Levy maintains his modesty despite his many achievements. He has subtly backed issues near and dear to his heart, including racial equality and autism awareness. Eugene's close connection with fellow comedian John Candy was one of the most essential partnerships in his life. Their relationship was more than professional. It was intimate. Eugene still feels the impact of John Candy's untimely death, which left an indelible hole in his life. His work speaks for itself. As Eugene advances, his accomplishments, from being awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame to working on projects with his kids, speak for themselves. He has left behind a legacy of warmth, love, and laughter that endures. But those who know him know that his humility and compassion define him. In addition to being a gifted comedian, Eugene Levy is proof that in a noisy world, sometimes the quiet ones have the most influence. He often claims to have been fortunate, but those who have seen him understand that it takes more than luck. It takes courage. John Candy. John Candy was born and raised in Newmarket, Ontario, born on October 31st, 1950. His Catholic family's working-class heritage influenced his humble background. John's life wasn't always simple, and it became much more complex when his father, Sidney, died of heart problems at the age of 35 when John was very young. John would live the rest of his life feeling the emptiness left by the loss. Early life. Raising John and his siblings required a lot of labor from John's Polish mother. They had many happy and sad memories of their little East York house at 27 Woodville Avenue. However, John's kind and loving nature developed in that modest house. Even though he faced many obstacles in life, he was a young man with lofty aspirations. Football injury. John Candy was a talented football player in high school who aspired to play professionally. That desire, however, was dashed by a knee injury. John's life changed after the injury, and he would later look back on it with a bittersweet grin and remark, "I thought football was it for me, but sometimes life has other plans." Intending to study journalism, he enrolled at Centennial College, but he was drawn to the arts for some reason. Acting became his passion once he found comfort in it. After that, he transferred to McMaster University, enthusiastically accepting this new direction. Second City. John had a modest start to his long and cherished career in 1971 when he was cast in a minor part in the play Creeps. He began doing little parts in Canadian TV series and movies, putting much effort into each job. When he joined Second City, Toronto's well-known improv group, in 1972, he made his breakthrough and started a new career phase. Hid his face behind the mask. John Candy's distinct comic ability began to get recognition at Second City, Toronto. Even though he was becoming more successful, he was never wholly free from the shadow of his childhood bereavement. Because of his work on SCTV, Second City Television, John was well known in Canada by 1976. Although his characters, like William B. Williams and Johnny LaRue, made people laugh, a subdued melancholy persisted. Humor as a shield. Although John's humor was a gift, it also served as a barrier to block the outside world from witnessing the pain he still felt from losing his father so early. In the late 1970s, John's skill caught the attention of Hollywood, and he began to appear in American movies. Although he had a minor part in Steven Spielberg's 1941-1979, he made a big impression with his performance in Stripes, 1981. He played the endearing, kind character in the movie, someone you had to cheer for. He stood out in Hollywood because of his capacity to evoke laughter and more profound emotion in viewers. His work in Splash. John Candy's big break came in 1984 when he played Tom Hanks' womanizing brother in Splash. He instantly won over audiences with his warmth, relatability, and comedy. John preferred to avoid taking advantage of his sudden celebrity. He maintained humility and refused to let his success alter who he was. Fame didn't change the fact that, in his heart, he still grieved his father and carried that anguish with him. Wished his father saw his success. John rose to fame in Hollywood through the 1980s, appearing in movies such as Summer Rental and Brewster's Millions, alongside Richard Pryor. His reputation as one of the industry's most amiable and humorous performers grew with each performance. Nevertheless, there was a hint of sorrow about him despite all the laughter. According to his friends, he was the life of the party, yet sometimes he would become silent and absorbed in his thoughts. He would sometimes remark, "I wonder what my dad would have thought," thinking of the parent who was blind to his accomplishment. His unforgettable roles. John Candy continued his strenuous efforts throughout the years, landing memorable parts in movies like Spaceballs and making brief appearances in beloved series like Little Shop of Horrors. Behind the scenes, however, his health started to deteriorate. John's life was marred by the same heart condition that had killed his father when he was 35. He worried about it, but he didn't talk about it much. Movies with John Hughes. In 1987, John made a significant professional move when he teamed up with Steve Martin on the John Hughes written and directed movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. The film was well received by critics and made about $50 million at the box office in the United States. John, however, was aware of the high standards and pressure that accompanied success behind all the laughter. A cameo followed this in She's Having a Baby, 1988, and a leading role in another John Hughes film, The Great Outdoors, where he co-starred with his good buddy, Dan Aykroyd. Not all were hits. However, only some projects that John Candy worked on turned out well. Some were deemed failures, such as his portrayal in Who's Harry Crumb and his part as the horse's voice in Hot to Trot. John gave every project his best in the hopes that it would resonate with the proper audience despite repeated disappointments. His work often seemed to be a mixed bag. There was a smash like Uncle Buck, 1989, for every dreck like Speed Zone, demonstrating his ability to captivate people still and touch their emotions. His other works. He was pretty happy with his children's supporting parts in his animated Camp Candy NBC series. John was grounded because he always stressed the value of family. He continued his tradition of friendliness in roles that aimed at families by providing the voice of Wilbur the Albatross in The Rescuers Down Under, 1990. His cameo in the iconic Home Alone, 1990, was one of his most memorable roles, demonstrating his enduring friendship with director John Hughes. Even though he would joke off some of his career's setbacks, they sometimes bothered him. His 1991 film, Only the Lonely, did well at the box office despite receiving positive reviews. His disappointment streak was further exacerbated by his roles in Nothing But Trouble, 1991, Delirious, 1991, and Once Upon a Crime, 1992. He's never giving up spirit. John discovered a bright spot in Cool Runnings, 1993, a touching movie about a Jamaican bobsled team that was financially and emotionally successful despite the difficulties. Additionally, he had a short but significant cameo in Rookie of the Year, 1993, demonstrating that his unique touch could have a lasting effect even in smaller parts. John Candy's goal came true in 1994 when he was given the chance to direct his first comedy, Hostage for a Day. But his last appearances in Canadian Bacon, 1995, and Wagons East, 1994, were bittersweet. As he reflected on his career, John seemed to want further chances and endeavors. Unfortunately, in the years before his death, he was plagued by unfinished projects and untapped potential. Loss of an iconic figure. His planned part as Ignatius J. Riley in a movie rendition of A Confederacy of Dunces is one noteworthy missed chance. Despite being a great match, this position was never created. In unfinished projects, he has shown interest in playing well-known characters like Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, the silent cinema actor. He seems painfully connected to other great comedians who had died too young. Abandoned plans. Plans to feature him in Bartholomew vs. Neff, a comedy starring Sylvester Stallone and John Hughes, were eventually shelved. Roles such as Red Feather, Turkey were primarily written for him in animated movies like Pocahontas, 1995, but were removed following his tragic passing. Fans were left wondering about what may have been as it became apparent that John Candy's career was entirely of unrealized promise and goals. Career filled with joy, love, and laughter. Despite the happiness, love, and laughter that characterized John Candy's career, the shadows of loss were never far away. "I just wish for one more chance," he once said in a vulnerable moment, expressing how much he longed for positions and possibilities he could never pursue. John and his spouse, Rosemary Hober, have 2 children, Jennifer Ann and Christopher Michael. Despite life's ups and downs, he was a devout Roman Catholic who found solace and strength in his religion. He loved the sunlight and hanging out with pals in Brentwood, Los Angeles, but he always had a heavy heart. John's great passions. Another of John's great hobbies was sports. In 1991, he joined Wayne Gretzky and Bruce McNall to acquire a stake in the Toronto Argonauts, a franchise in the Canadian Football League. Their daring actions, like signing NFL player Rahib Ismail, rocked the sports world and expanded John's many interests beyond acting, garnering media attention. Devastated news. Tragic events occurred in Durango City, Mexico in March 1994 when John Candy was shooting Wagons East. At the age of 43, he died while sleeping. Those who knew him were heartbroken by the news. According to official records, he suffered a heart attack, but his loved ones knew that his problems had been growing for years. John, who once weighed more than 300 pounds, often resorted to food for solace during trying times. His father had died of a heart attack when he was a young boy, so he had a family history of early cardiac issues in addition to other heart disease risk factors. Big-hearted guy. He made an effort to control his weight, but his health problems still caused him a lot of stress. His untimely passing brought to light the personal hardships he endured, sometimes concealed beneath his contagious warmth and humor. In an interview, John's close friend, Eugene Levy, discussed his death, recalling John as a big-hearted guy with a natural, effortless flair for comedy. Whether performing on the Second City stage or in his well-known film appearances, John always made an impression. Eugene said his sincere attitude came through in everything he did, which set him apart. He made a lasting impact on everyone he encountered because of his extraordinary ability to win people over without even trying. Memorable roles. Perhaps the most well-known of his jobs involves Cars, Trains, and Airplanes. John Candy played Uncle Buck as well, but his performance in Planes elevated his role to a new level. He was an expert at portraying flawed characters who, despite their awkwardness, had a kind heart. John's ability to represent the idiot with such sincerity that viewers couldn't help but cheer him on was his magic. His genuineness and sincerity were evident in each role he played. A team player. His collaborations with other actors were as noteworthy. Particularly in his appearances with performers like Steve Martin, John often collaborated with personal friends, and their connection was obvious. Their interactions on their television program, Second City, were perfect. Their ability to make even the most unknowable individuals likable was impressive, whether they were portraying Dr. Tong or his buddy Woody Tobias. Despite their ignorance of the outside world, the characters were likable and approachable because of their on-screen bond. Brought joy to the cast and crew. Even while working in comedy may look fun and funny, the reality on set is sometimes quite different. Even if there weren't as many humorous moments as anticipated, the actors and crew were happy when they laughed during breaks or between shoots. John Candy passed away much too young, yet his influence endures today, primarily because of the happiness he offered to so many. His legacy teaches that some individuals make a lasting impression on the world. How a person's soul can reverberate long after they are no longer with us is fantastic. Fans still remember and appreciate John Candy's enduring influence because of his warmth, humor, and generosity.